you have charcoal. There is probably a bag of it in your garage right now, or under a sink, or on a shelf in a shed you haven't opened since last summer. It is one of the most ordinary things a person can own. Black, light, slightly dusty on your hands. You have never once in your entire life wondered where the idea of it came from. Here's the thing, charcoal is not just fuel. It is one of the oldest deliberate technologies human beings ever developed, a way of taking organic matter and locking it into a form that resists decay for centuries, sometimes millennia. Most people who own a bag of it have never asked what else that property could be used for. What else you could do with something that refuses to break down. 250 metric tons. That's how much organic carbon researchers found packed into a single hectare of a certain kind of soil in the Amazon rainforest, compared to under 100 metric tons in the untouched ground right next to it. That is the number I kept returning to, and the more I looked at it, the more the bag of charcoal sitting in my garage began to feel different. I wasn't the only one who noticed, not even close. When I started asking around, I found the same shrug everywhere. People use charcoal every summer and never once ask what it actually is. Not a fringe curiosity, not a specialist question. A shared, quiet, never quite named blind spot about something almost everyone owns and almost no one examines. How did something this useful, this stable, this durable become so ordinary that no one ever asked what else it could build? Here is what we've always been told about the Amazon. For most of the last century, the official position was that the rainforest soil was simply too poor to support real civilization, so thin and fragile that the people living there had to keep moving every couple of years just to grow enough to eat. Any patch of unusually dark, rich earth that archaeologists dug up was written off as nothing more than an old trash heap from a small camp that didn't stay long. And I want to be honest. That explanation is not nothing, it's reasonable, it rests on real evidence. Amazonian rainforest soil genuinely is some of the worst dirt on earth for farming, acidic, aluminum-heavy, stripped of nutrients within 2 or 3 growing seasons. Serious scientists spent careers building this picture, and for most of the tropics, it holds up. It accounts for almost everything, It cannot account for soil that gets more fertile the longer it's used, in a climate that destroys organic matter faster than almost anywhere on the planet. Soil scientists found exactly that. Patches of earth with a near-neutral pH, phosphorus levels 40 to 100 times higher than the ground around them, and fertility that is held for over 2,000 years. Which means the charcoal in your garage, the stuff that feels so disposable, sits right in that gap, in the space between what we were always told and what the specific record actually shows. And then I found it somewhere else. Not a similar thing, the same thing. In 1542, a Spanish friar named Gaspar de Carvajal traveled down the Amazon River with an expedition and wrote down what he saw. Continuous fortified towns stretching for miles along the banks, paved roads, fine pottery, a regional ruler named Aparia who could call up thousands of warriors. For nearly 400 years, historians treated this account as fantasy, a chronicler exaggerating to please his king back in Spain. Then researchers mapped where the dark, fertile soil actually sits along that same stretch of river. It lines up with Carvajal's descriptions almost exactly, not roughly, almost exactly. 2 accounts. 4 centuries apart, a written record dismissed as fiction, and a soil map that says it wasn't fiction at all. And charcoal, the same substance, sitting in that garage, sitting at the center of both of them. In central Amazon, near a site called Assutuba, archaeologists found something that shouldn't exist under the old model. A settlement stretching across 150 hectares with earthen mounds, defensive ditches, and a central plaza measuring 450 meters long. Pottery layers there run 2 meters deep, laid down continuously from around 300 BC to 1500 AD. Not a passing camp. A place people never really left for 1800 years. 800 miles away, in the upper Jingu region, researchers mapped a network called Kuhikugu towns, laid out on a grid, connected by wide roads, surrounded by engineered fields. Different river system, different language family, the same underlying signature, land that had been deliberately, permanently reshaped. Different countries within the same country, different centuries, the same specific gap in the same specific place in the record. And in that same Xingu region, in 2023, researchers didn't just study the ancient soil, they watched a living indigenous community, the Kwikuro, still building it, grinding charcoal, mixing in ash and food waste, working it into planting beds by hand. When scientists tested the chemistry, the soil the Kwikuro were making today was compositionally identical to soil laid down 2,000 years ago. This is not the shape of coincidence. Coincidence scatters. This clusters. And charcoal is in every one of those places. Not metaphorically. The same material, worked the same way, recovered from river mouth settlements, from grid-planned cities 800 miles inland, and from the hands of people doing it again right now. You are not looking at something local. You are looking at something that spans an entire river basin the size of a small continent. Here is what the official explanation requires you to accept. Not as a conspiracy, as simple arithmetic. An engineered soil technology, chemically consistent enough to be identified as a single method, spread across 6,000 to 18,000 square kilometers of rainforest, built continuously for 2,000 years, from roughly 500 BC to 1,500 AD. Across river systems separated by hundreds of miles, among societies with no shared writing system to record the method, no centralized empire to enforce it, and at most of these sites no metal tools at all. Let that sit. No writing to pass it down, no single state to spread it, no metal to work the ground with. And yet the same specific recipe, charcoal, ash, organic waste, worked into the same depth, producing the same chemistry, shows up again and again across a landmass roughly the size of France. I am not saying someone coordinated this. I am saying the coordination problem does not have a clean answer inside the official explanation, and the official explanation has never been required to provide one. Charcoal is the product of that coordination. Whatever it was, however it happened. The bag in your garage is a distant descendant of a process that occurred, independently or not, across a river basin the size of a small continent in a window the record has never fully explained. Subscribe if you want to know what happens when the record can't explain its own gap. Stay with me. Wim Sombroek is standing in a Brazilian field in the 1950s, holding a handful of dark soil. He is a young Dutch soil surveyor working for the UN's food agency, doing what he's paid to do, mapping which ground in the Amazon is good for farming and which isn't. He grew up in the Netherlands during the winter of 1944, when the country was under German occupation and food had nearly stopped moving. His family survived because his father had spent years mixing hearth ash and half-burned charcoal into a small garden plot, building soil that kept producing when the neighbor's land gave out. Sombroek was 10 years old. He remembered exactly what that soil looked like and exactly what it felt like in his hands. Standing in Brazil more than a decade later, surveying ground that was supposed to be some of the worst farmland on earth, he found patches that looked and felt like his father's garden, dark, rich, full of old pottery. He recognized it instantly because he had watched it save his family's life. He was not making a discovery in the dramatic sense. He was doing his job mapping soil one plot at a time. And in doing so, he became the first person in modern science to say clearly that this was not an accident of nature. It was infrastructure, built on purpose, by people the record had never credited with building anything at all. Sombroek did not set out to overturn a century of thinking about the Amazon. The record does not show that anyone told him he would. That is either ordinary bureaucracy or the most important thing in this entire investigation. The record cannot tell us which. I want to be honest with you about what I cannot prove, not as a disclaimer, as the most important thing I can say. I cannot prove exactly how this method traveled, whether it was invented once and carried outward, or discovered independently by dozens of separate groups solving the same problem the same way. I cannot prove what the total population of the pre-Columbian Amazon actually was. The estimates researchers use are informed, but they are still estimates. and I cannot prove intent, whether the builders of any single site understood they were part of something that would span a continent or were simply doing what their parents did on the plot of ground in front of them. What I can show you is the pattern. What I cannot show you is the intent. And I want to be clear, a pattern without documented intent is not proof of anything. It is a shape in the record that the official explanation has not been required to account for. I am also aware that I have been looking at this pattern for weeks now. Minds that look for patterns find them. I am not exempt from that. What I am asking you to do is not to trust my pattern recognition. I am asking you to look at the specific documented instances I have shown you: Carvajal's Chronicle, Achutuba, Kuhikugu, the Kuikuro Fields, and tell me whether the official explanation accounts for all of them. It does not account for all of them. That is not my conclusion. That is the gap. There is one thing the record preserved that connects the charcoal in your garage to everything I've shown you: the soil itself. Sites like Achutuba, Hatahara, and Terra Preta do Mangabal are still there, still legally protected today under Brazilian federal law as archaeological heritage, and they are still fertile. Farmers work that ground right now, growing crops in dirt that was engineered before the printing press existed, before compasses crossed the Atlantic, before almost anything we'd call recorded history in that part of the world. It survived not because someone protected it on purpose from the start, but because the system that eventually cataloged it never fully understood what it was looking at. Charcoal is in your garage right now. It was there before you watched this. It will be there after. Nothing about it has changed. It's still black, still light enough to lift with one hand, still slightly dusty on your fingers when you pick it up. What has changed is what you know about where the idea came from, about a 2,000-year window in which people across a landmass the size of France were quietly doing the exact same thing with it. About Wim Sombroek recognizing his father's garden in a stranger's field on another continent. About soil still growing food right now that the official story spent a century insisting shouldn't exist. The charcoal was not made for you. It was made, first, by people the record spent 100 years refusing to credit with building anything at all. It was processed into a household item by a system that had a use for what it does and no interest in where the idea originally came from. The engineered ground it descends from remains, right now, under crops, in a country most of us will never visit. And if you look at it long enough, it tells you exactly how something becomes ordinary. Not through familiarity. Through the completely ordinary act of no one ever explaining why it was necessary in the first place. Charcoal has been in your life since before you could read a bag label. You have never been asked whether you wanted to know where it came from. You have never been told what it replaced. What would you do differently if you had been?